Hello and welcome to another edition of the Back Nine Report, where we talk anything and everything golf. My name is Carlos Torres, along with Fred Alvader. Fred, hi, how are you this week?
Carlos, I'm still down here in southern Florida where it was 85 degrees today, sunny, beautiful,
No,
fantastic. I'm going to start making my way back north later this week. I'm not really looking forward to it. They're supposed to get like 8 to 10 inches of snow up there over the next couple of days. Temperatures in the single digits. That's going to be a big awakening for me, I'm afraid. I don't know if I'm going to be ready for that.
you
Hey,
deserve
Carlos,
it. After saying that you're at 80 degrees when I'm here in the low 40s, no, you deserve
yeah.
all that snow. Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. Go swimming every day. It's fantastic, man. It's wonderful. Hey, we were expecting to see Tiger Woods this week at Torrey Pines for the Genesis Open, but at the last minute, he decided he was not ready to compete after the death of his mother. So we're not going to get to see Tiger this week in his tournament, which we're kind of used to because of all the injuries and things he's had over the last few years. So just one more reason that Tiger's not playing. And again, we mentioned it last week. Condolences to him and his family over the loss of his mother, but he's just not quite ready to play yet, Carlos.
He's not, and that's unfortunate, but it is part of the cycle of life. And once again, our deepest condolences are extended to him and his family. But hey, Fred, today we're going to talk about a major shakeup in the world of professional golf because the RNA just announced that the LIV golfers will have a direct pathway to the play in the Open Championship. Doesn't that sound like something we talk about? Oh, no, that was the USGA that did the same for the US Open, right? But what does this mean for the game, the players, and the future of professional golf? Let's dive right into it. Fred, first of all, what's your first initial thought about this?
So, we were talking before we came on. Does the USGA and the RNA know something we don't know? Well, obviously they do. Is a merger, is it really going to happen? They've been talking about this now for about a year and a half. Are they finally going to get this done? Uh, does the USGA and the RNA know that this is imminent and that it's going to be coming soon? So why not go ahead and get some things done? But I really think more of the answer to this, Carlos, to your question is that with the new agreement with Fox, they're going to get more eyeballs. They weren't excited about the CW network, right? I mean, nobody was watching that thing. I mean, they were near 20,000 viewers or some such thing. I mean, it was just not. For example, okay, the Super Bowl averaged 126 million viewers. Okay, so if you're the LIV promoting golf on CW Network and you're getting 20,000 to 30,000 viewers, that's like nothing. Okay, nothing. I think the move to Fox has really added an air of legitimacy. And then, like we said last week, the USGA recognizing and then giving an exemption to one of their players uh, is again adding legitimacy. And that's been the big complaint with players we've seen that come off the LIV that they were promised OWGR rankings so they could be in the majors, and they're not getting those. And the OWGR says until you change your format, you're not getting ranking points. So yeah, this is a big deal. Scott O'Neill, the new CEO who took over for Greg Norman at LIV, said, "We thank Mark Darbin, who is the head of the RNA, for taking this step for the benefit of moving golf forward. The Open Championship is one of the most prestigious events in all of sport. The acknowledgement that competitors from the LIV Golf League and the International Series will have the opportunity to play in golf's original major is a true testament to the strength of fields and the RNA's commitment to golf fans around the world." So, you know, the Open Championship and the U.S. Open pride themselves in having very strong fields, the best fields. They're open. Anybody can play. If they want to qualify and they come up through the qualifications, they can play. So this is one more way. It's kind of like throwing an olive branch out there a little bit to the LIV. And I don't know. And bottom line is, it's only one player. It's not a whole bunch of guys. It's just one guy. Okay. So in the whole big scheme of things, it's not really a big deal. But just the fact that it adds that little bit of legitimacy to the LIV, that's the big thing, Carlos.
Yeah, and for those who may not know, let's break it down a little bit. The Open Championship, aka the British Open, right, is one of golf's oldest and most prestigious tournaments, like you mentioned. And historically, players had to qualify through various routes. Primarily, it would be the PGA Tour. But now that the RNA has created this dedicated pathway for the LIV golfers based on their LIV golf standings, uh, and like we mentioned, it follows the US Open's decision to offer exemptions to LIV golfers last week. This is a big deal because up until now, access for the LIV players to majors, I would call it is murky to say the least. But let's talk about the reactions, right? Because this announcement has sparked plenty of debate, and you got a few different camps here and there. The first one that I would say is the golf purists. Right now, they're a bit torn. On one hand, they want the best players in the world competing, regardless of which tour they play on. On the other hand, there's still lingering resentment toward LIV for breaking the tradition, right? Then you have the pro LIV supporters. They're calling this a victory for the players and for golf as a whole. Oh my God, this is the big thing. LIV was always positioned as a way to disrupt the sport, and now its players are being legitimized by these exemptions into the biggest tournaments in the world. So a victory for them. Now you have the casual fans. Honestly, most casual fans just want to see great golf. They're happy as long as they get to see players like Dustin Johnson, Cam Smith, Brooks Koepka in the mix at the Open. So they could care less. They just want to see the great players. Now, what do you see about some pros and cons about this, and looking forward to what is going to happen after this?
Yeah, I don't. There's not a lot of cons. From the very beginning, we have been against the LIV. We're golf. We're old guys. We want to see the PGA Tour succeed and do well. We've watched the PGA. I've been watching the PGA since the '60s, Carlos. So, the Arnold Palmer days, through the Nicklaus years, and all the way up Tom Watson and all the guys all the way up through Tiger in the '90s, and we want the PGA Tour. We want that history. We want that kind of a competition so we can compare the golfers of today to the golfers of past. I know maybe it's a fruitless argument, but we want that. That's what we like. And to see this breakaway LIV league doesn't quite compute. And the money grab that was going on, that has turned off so many people to not even watch golf. I mean, we've seen the TV audiences in the United States down by 30%. Guys are just frustrated that they don't have the Brooks Koepkas and the Bryson DeChambeaus, the Cam Smiths. We don't have those on the PGA Tour, so we don't get to see them week in, week out. So we don't have the best players playing in our tournaments that we're watching on the PGA Tour. So that's frustrating, especially for someone like me, and I know it is for you as well. So to get these exemptions for the LIV, it's a major coup for them. But I do have some questions, Carlos, and I'll start off by asking. So, and we'll just take a second to answer these, if you could. Was the USGA, the RNA, the PGA, and the Masters just waiting for Greg Norman to step aside before they did some of this stuff? Because now Scott O'Neill stepped in as the new CEO of the, and all this stuff all of a sudden is just happening. So he didn't have time to get it all done. The groundwork had to be laid for this before, right?
Yeah, it seems, I mean, the timing is awfully uh, correct on that. You would say, okay, it was after Greg Norman leave that this is happening like so quick, right? So I would say that maybe yes, and I think from the beginning, there was this resentment against LIV, mostly because of the attitude that Greg Norman was having, right? He didn't, he was, we're going to have the best players here. I'm offering all this money. I think the approach was wrong. It's like, I compare this to the way that LeBron said, I'm going to take uh, my skills and my talents to South Beach, right? It didn't set well the way that he did it. Now, after a while, now everybody's like, okay, LeBron this and LeBron that. But so I think at this time that he's not in, that dissentment is not there. That first hate or that pushback is not there. So yeah, seems like it's part of the comeback towards a unifying tour.
So the next part is that is the LIV going to continue to change their format to more closely align with official world golf ranking rules, like maybe have 72 hole events instead of 54. They've already changed the rule to count all four scores to determine the winner of the team segment of the event to make players compete for the entire event and not just mail it in for the rest of the week. Do you see any of that happening? I mean, is this part of the deal? Like, okay, going forward, you guys are going to have to go to 72 holes, and then we'll let you know WGR, and then you can do the, if we bring all this PGA Tour and OWGR or LIV together, you got to go to 72 holes. You ever see that happening?
That is going to be, I think, a part of a deeper conversation because that would be working towards that unifying that they're going to have to do. Because how are they going to integrate? Because the bigger question is they just signed with Fox, and you can't just let that TV deal go off. And any unification is not going to happen this season. It would be from next season on. So there's going to be time for them to plan what is it going to be. So if this finally the deal, and we're going to talk a little bit on the next segment about this, but working towards that unifying uh, play, how is it going to work? How is it going to be? Which tournaments are going to stay on the big stage? How is the LIV tournaments are going to stay? What are you going to do? Because you just have all those tournaments, you're not going to get rid of them in the next couple of years. So I think it comes down to the same thing that we've been always talking about a big tour, world tour for the big players, and some feeder tours that LIV can be one of them. And you can even think about, okay, let me see if I can have tours that are going to be co-sanctioning tournaments to make it bigger and have some players from all around the world also qualifying and trying to play against these big fields that are stacked. So yeah, I actually think it is on the way to it, but there's going to have to be some more conversations to see where this is all going because unifying all those tournaments now is going to be a big deal. But hey, we've always said we're here to help. We have an idea already. We have
Yeah,
published it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
just give us a call. We're here for that.
yeah. We got the plan, no problem.
It's already
So
documented.
we've already seen the USGA and the R&A give exemptions to the US Open and the Open Championship. The Masters has a little bit of a history. They've been giving an exemption to Joaquin Niemann, who plays on the LIV, but that's from his international play, his international standing, not necessarily just an exemption because he's on the LIV. So he's been earning that. Do you see the Masters and the PGA maybe add exemptions for the LIV like the USGA and the R&A has done?
I see the PGA doing it first before the Masters does it. The Masters do what they do, and they will continue to do it that same way. I don't think the Masters is going to change until there is that unification and all these players are back. They're not going to be doing anything different. I actually see the PGA doing something before the Masters. Until this is solved, the players are in one tour. They start getting those changes. And I do think, and I forgot to mention this, I do think that part of the LIV is they're going to have to go 72 holes. There's no other way. I think they're preparing this. They're doing this changes here and there, but at the end of the day, they're going to have to go 72 holes because the biggest promise was we're going to get official world golf ranking to points, and they're not getting them other than going into the majors, and not everybody's going into them. So yeah, definitely I do think it's coming, but the Masters, they're gonna wait.
One of the problems too, along with the 54 hole tournaments, they were all no cut events. There was just 48 players or now 54 or whatever. But now with the signature events on the PGA Tour, they're basically the same thing. They're what, max 70 players, and they're no cut. Everybody gets a check that shows up. But you got to qualify for them. You got to be able to get there. Finally, Carlos, really only talking about one exemption for the US Open and one exemption for the Open Championship. Are we really reading more into this than is really necessary?
Wow, that's a big question. I think so. I think that we are just because of the nature of it, we're just trying to make things and think about more about the future. You know, could these LIV players get another path into that event or this one? How a year ago this seemed impossible, but things are evolving fast. So I also think about the Ryder Cup. You know, could the LIV get another path into that? And also the international event. So I don't know. To me, yeah, I think we're just over analyzing this, and I think it's very simple. Let's just get the PIF and the PGA Tour on the same room, and let's get this done.
You know, on a side note, I found this interesting today. Nobody's watching the LIV. Now maybe with Fox, maybe they'll start getting bigger numbers. But TaylorMade just dropped Dustin Johnson this week, and he's been a long time sponsor. They've been a long time sponsor for him, and I know everybody's cutting back, but that kind of surprised me a little bit that they dropped Dustin. But if nobody's seeing you play, why would we pay you?
Correct. And that's, I think this is part of what they want also. They're losing their exposure. They have to. And to me, as a final thought to this, golf is at a crossroads right now. The decision to grant the LIV golfers these exemptions into the Open, the US Open, isn't just about inclusion, it's really about the future of the game. And these players that took the decision to go to the LIV are paying right now with that lack of exposure. So will this bring us closer to a more unified sport, or will it divide it even more? One thing for sure is this year's Open Championship at Royal Portrush, to me, it's going to be a must watch. So any final thoughts about this topic?
No, I think we pretty much covered it. We've been covering the LIV now since it started, what, 3 years ago now? We've, done extensive breaking down and analysis and talking about it. And things seem to be happening pretty rapidly, Carlos. It's kind of like that snowball. The snowball's getting bigger and it's starting to roll downhill a little bit faster. So I got to think that we're going to start to see some movement on this merger and what it's going to look like after we get all this put together. And I think these are just little baby steps that are getting us closer to all that, Carlos.
They do. And now let's talk about, let's dive into a high level meeting. It is sending shockwaves really through the golf world. Whether you think it's good, whether you think it's bad, I know everybody has their own opinion about it, but here it is. The PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan and professional golfer Adam Scott recently met with the president, US President Donald Trump, and they're discussing the ongoing PGA LIV golf deal. And this is important because we've come to learn that the DOJ has been the biggest obstacle so far to that deal. Okay. And I was seeing yesterday about Donald Trump signing a executive order that basically is going to, I think it's something that he did. I think it's associated to this because it's allowing now, you know, that whenever you went outside of the US to try to do business, you had to go through the DOJ and the FBI went there to see and do investigations, and people really wanted to do business outside of the US, but I don't want to go into all this thing. And it's not that I'm doing anything wrong, but you know, some other people on the outside are going to look at, oh no, I'm not going to do business with you. So now that's not going to happen. So if you are, that executive order is meant to uh, make sure that you have a swift way to start doing that type of business. So one of the things that have been happening is that the DOJ has been putting a lot of pushback to this because of the monopolistic laws, right? But isn't a PGA Tour right now a monopoly?
Pretty
And
much are. They pretty much have been for a long
they
time. And
they
they
don't
tried
have
to
it.
quash. I mean, they tried to use this monopoly and their hold on the TV and the media to not let the LIV get going in the first place. And that's what these laws are supposed to not allow.
Correct. So to me, this is part of it. So this meeting that they had, we don't know the details of it, but uh, for sure, that's what they were discussing, that evolving partnership between the PGA Tour and the LIV Golf. And we know that last year, after Donald Trump was elected, he was with the head of the PIF at his golf course talking with him. So I think, Fred, this is way underway. And I truly think that through Donald Trump, this meeting is critical because his ties to the LIV Golf run deep. He has the relationships and he wants to see this happen.
Well, Trump was a long time supporter of golf. We've talked about this before. I mean, he pumped a lot of money into the LPGA Tour. Uh, he was putting money into the PGA Tour. He was hosting events. He had a major scheduled for the Westminster Club in New Jersey at the PGA. And after he was elected in 2016, they pulled that, remember, because he was so controversial. And so he got ticked off. And so when the LIV came around, he's hosted a couple LIV events at his courses. So he's in with these people and he loves golf. We know that. He's involved in the business of golf. He owns high profile golf clubs around the world. I've played a couple of them and they're fantastic. You just can't go to any place any better. So he does a wonderful job with the properties that he now owns and controls and runs. And he wants to be involved in professional golf. Can you see Donald Trump when he gets done being president as the commissioner of the PGA Tour or something? Can you imagine that? Or the czar over the LIV and the PGA Tour or something? Can you imagine that? Oh my goodness, that would be something. But longtime supporter of PGA Tour and LPGA Tour, and now has become involved with Greg Norman and the LIV. So, and he made a statement. He said, if I was involved in this, I could solve this in 15 minutes. So, Donald tends to stretch things a little bit. It may take him 30 minutes, but I think they're probably on the right page, maybe talking to him because he does have connections. You might be right. There might be a DOJ angle in this thing. And he can definitely get that work because he'll just keep firing people until he gets the right guy in there to tell him what he wants to hear. So, in a statement about Commissioner Jay Monahan and player director Adam Scott's meeting with President Donald Trump last Tuesday, we know golf fans are eagerly anticipating a resolution to negotiations with the Public Investment Fund, the PIF, and want to thank President Trump for his interest and longtime support of the game of golf. We ask the president to get involved for the good of the game, the good of the country, and for all the countries involved. We are grateful for his leadership, has brought us closer to a final deal, paving the way for reunification of men's professional golf. So, can Trump really do something to speed up this merger? Well, I don't know. But I'll bet it was, if not said out loud, I'll bet it was implied that, well, if you help us do this, maybe we get a couple tournaments, a couple of your courses going forward. What do you think?
I think that's part of it, but there's this three perspectives. I've been reading about this and I classify them as one, the supporters, those who have backed LIV from the start. To them, this meeting signals progress. Some see Trump as a potential bridge between the fractured sides of golf, helping the PGA and LIV work towards a smoother transition. I've seen some skeptics. Others see this as a calculated political move with underlying motives. This is, his deep involvement with LIVs, raising questions about his role and influence in the future of golf, and not everyone is comfortable with it. But to those, I say, that's not new. He's been doing it all his life. So I don't know what you're talking about. But also the player's perspective is very important because many players still remain cautiously optimistic. Adam Scott called the meeting positive, suggesting that it's an important step towards stabilizing the men's professional golf. But still, not everyone on the PGA Tour is thrilled about the LIV's growing influence, and that could be it. But yeah, a lot of people say, "Oh, that's a conflict of interest." Trump's heavy ties to the LIV may raise ethical concerns about his role in shaping the future of the partnership. What ethical problem do you have with that? I mean, this is purely a business proposition from him. His acumen and global network could open new doors for sponsorships and event venues. Yeah, some of them might be his, but potentially he's going to benefit both tours. So I don't know. I know some loyalists to the PGA will never accept this, will never embrace the LIV's influence, and those who are against, our president, they say, no, that's increasing political polarization. But to me, golf always has been seen as a relatively apolitical sport. So this meeting, however, is risking for by some people is risking it further into the political spotlight. But let's stop looking at it that way. I just think this will accelerate that PGA and LIV deal. The reports suggest they're close to finalizing it, but they've been close for a year and a half so far, Fred.
Yeah. So, this is all great, and we've talked about it and broken down. But one of the things that right now on that I'm seeing, Carlos, is you've got Jay Monahan and the Player Advisory Board trying to put something together to promote the PGA Tour. You've got purses up 30%. The players are earning more money than they've ever earned before on the PGA Tour. And then you've got guys like Charlie Hoffman and Lucas Glover taking pot shots at the tour publicly. If I'm Jay Monahan, I'm not too happy about my players coming out in the public and bad mouthing what's going on when we're trying to put all this stuff together and trying to get a unification of the players that are playing on the PGA Tour. I see this as a bigger problem right now than the LIV, to be quite honest with you. Charlie Hoffman's letter, and we know this. I mean, it's like we saw on the DP World Tour over the last 4 or 5 years. It's become two separate tours. You've got the haves and the have-nots. Those 8 Rolex events on the European tour, those were the big money deals. That's where the big names from Europe left the PGA Tour to go back to Europe and play in those. But other times they were playing on the PGA Tour. Getting the same thing now in the United States. You've got these signature events that all the main guys are playing in, and the other events, the other 30 some events, are having trouble getting fields. You've got to get some 50-year-old guys in there to fill out these fields, and they're not going to do the money qualifiers anymore. But that all being said, the pot shots that Lucas Glover are taking and Charlie Hoffman are taking right now, I think those are a bigger issue for the PGA Tour than actually the LIV right to be real honest with you, Carlos.
They do, and definitely we have to stop this. We have until everybody, and I don't think it's going to happen, but at least most people, until they get on board, that is not going to happen. To me, a final thought on this meeting between Monahan, Scott, and Trump is pivotal moment right now for the future of golf. It is a reminder that sports are never just about what happens on the course. They're always intertwined with politics, business, and culture. That's going to be it. The PGA and the LIV partnership could either be
Show
the
me the
best,
money. Show me the money, Carlos.
could either be the best thing to ever happen to the game or the most divisive. I think, Fred, time will tell. So, any final words on this?
If you pay them, they will come.
They will. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us. Remember to give us a like and follow us. Smash that like button. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll catch you the next time here on Black Nine Report. Until then, hey, keep swinging for the fairways. Thank you for joining us.